Welcome to another episode of BayView Views, folks. I'm Mark Dutram. Today I want to talk to you about an important event on the horizon, and that is the sunset, as you'd call it, of the Tax Cuts and the Jobs Act, or the TCJA is what I'll try to use that acronym throughout. But that is supposed to, again, sunset at the end of 2025. You know, to me, it seemed logical, with as much government spending as we've seen, that we should expect tax rates to go up in the future. And I mean, I think they're historically quite low, as a matter of fact. I've always said that we don't have a tax problem in this country, we have a spending problem. And hey, by the way, both parties are guilty of this. So the TCJA that was enacted in 2017 brought about really significant changes to our tax code. However, many of its provisions are set to expire after 8 years, which means that it will automatically revert to pre-2018 rules unless Congress extends them. So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into what these changes mean for individual taxpayers, for businesses, and maybe even the broader economy. First, let's talk about the individual income tax rate. The TCJA, again, tough one to say, lowered tax rates across the board and expanded the income tax brackets, which resulted in reduced tax bills for most Americans. However, if these provisions sunset, the tax rates will revert to their, again, pre-2018 levels. For example, the current top individual tax rate is 37%, but it would go back to about 40% or 39.6%. Similarly, such as a 22% or a 24% bracket will increase to 25% or 28% respectively. So this change will mean that most taxpayers will see an increase in their tax liability, particularly those in middle and higher income brackets. So we've kind of set our planning software to include the sunset provisions so that we take a more conservative approach to our income planning and our modeling going forward. And again, it makes sense. If taxes go up, then your net income obviously must go down. So you need to take that in consideration. Next, we have the standard deduction and the personal exemptions. Under the TCJA, which was quite awesome, the standard deduction nearly doubled, while personal exemptions were eliminated. So again, if the TCJA sunsets, the standard deduction will decrease to pre-2018 levels, but the personal exemptions will return. Now, while this shift might benefit larger families who would prefer the exemptions, the more common result will be that higher taxable income for most, especially those who don't itemize, right, their deductions. The TCJA also doubled the child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000 per child, and it raised the income threshold for eligibility, which really allowed many more people and families to benefit from the credit. However, again, with the sunset provision, the child tax credit is going to revert back to its previous amount and reducing, the benefit that families currently enjoy. Additionally, other family-related credits and deductions, such as like the earned income tax credit and the expanded benefits for dependent care, also may revert to a less generous taxation, affecting a lot of families who really rely on those credits to kind of offset child rearing costs, which we know are very expensive nowadays. This is a big one. We look at the TCJA, it doubled the estate and gift tax exemptions, and because of inflation and adjustments, this allows this year 13.6 million can pass tax-free in 2024. It's an incredible number. Well, again, this provision significantly reduced the number of estates subject to federal estate taxes. It was kind of a windfall. But if the law sunsets, the exemption will revert to its pre-2018 level, which was approximately about 5.5 million per person. And again, that's adjusted for inflation. So this reduction is going to have a substantial implication for estate planning, and high net worth individuals are going to need to reconsider their strategies to minimize tax exposure. Remember, the current maximum estate tax rate is 40%. This is a staggering number. And again, if you start getting into that number, you're going to give up a lot of money. It's expensive to pass away in this country if that happens. For businesses, let's just kind of talk about that for a minute. The TCJA lowered the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. And this was a permanent change. And again, so it's not going to be affected by the sunset. Some people think that's going to revert back. It's going to remain at that 21%. However, there's several other provisions that are going to expire, such as the 20% deduction for qualified business income. We call it a QBI deduction for pass-through entities like S corporations or partnerships or sole proprietorships. This deduction is set to expire at the end of 2025 and potentially increasing the tax burden for many small and medium-sized businesses. Moreover, kind of changes to the rules around business expenses and deductions, such as limits on interest expense deductions and expensing of capital investments, could also change, affecting business profitability and investment decisions. Lastly, again, it's worth considering kind of the broader economic impact. Generally, higher taxes lead to a reduction in consumer spending, right? Additionally, businesses facing increased taxes may reduce CapEx spending or hiring or potentially slowing economic growth altogether. So remember, a tax increase is a contractionary fiscal policy. The uncertainty surrounding these potential changes could also impact financial markets. Investors and companies are going to try to anticipate what the future tax landscape looks like. You also have heard it's an election year, different proposals from both camps about whether the sunset would only apply to certain people in certain income brackets or certain limits. There's been other types of taxes talked about, even on unrealized gains, or even some talk about tax credits for companies and businesses, etc. So regardless, you're going to have to monitor the appetite in Congress for these types of changes and see what their overall effects will be. So guys, in conclusion, the sunset provision of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, TCJA, at the end of 2025 is going to bring significant changes to our tax code in 2026. And it's going to affect, again, individuals, families, businesses, and probably, again, the broader economy. So stay tuned for more updates. And again, thanks for watching another episode of BayView Views. Have a great day.